As a lifelong Republican, do you believe that Donald Trump is necessary to move the Republican Party forward?
Absolutely. I love Trump. My husband does too. Depends on what direction you want to go. The direction I would like them to go, no.
It's hard to say at this moment. I mean, he's still got a lot of people that support him.
Let's discuss all of this with Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, host of the Michael Steele podcast, and an MSNBC political analyst. So, Michael, let me start with Liz Cheney. At the end of the week, with everything that's been going on and all of the hue and cry over what it means for her to be there or not be there, what it says about the party, what do you think is actually going to happen to Liz Cheney? Is she going to keep that House leadership job, or might she lose it to somebody more loyal to President Trump?
She'll lose it to someone more loyal to Trump. That card has been played. The die is cast, as they say. The reality of it is, when you lose Scalise, you lose McCarthy, you even lose one of the 10 members of the House who stood with you in voting for impeachment, you pretty much know what's coming around the corner. Having said that, I still believe that Liz Cheney is going to be in a stronger position on the other side of this. Whether or not she wins re-election in her Wyoming district, going through all the crazy there, what we see happen to, Mitt Romney being booed in his state party convention last week. All of these things are feeding a different kind of energy and a different kind of fuel out around the country. People now see the party fully exposed. It has declared its unrequited love for Donald Trump, and they're trying to requite it as quickly as they can. So, the reality of it is the party wants to move in that direction. Now we'll see how the future leadership emerges around Liz, around Mitt, around, Adam Kinzinger, others currently in elected office, governors, state reps, and we'll see what the party, how that split plays itself out over the next 18 months.
Speaking of that unrequited love, there's new polling out this week that shows that Donald Trump maintains the approval of 80% of the Republican Party, but among all registered voters, that number drops to less than 40%. Michael, I don't want to give you too much time to tell Republicans I told you so, but there were audits that the Republican Party did years ago that said, look, this is where the country's going demographically. This is where it's going ideologically. If we want to be a relevant party, we have to address some of these issues and find ways to make our platform meet the needs of Americans as they're becoming. And you were one of the people who kind of waved that flag. Donald Trump seems like his presence kind of abrogated that and allowed the party to not make that evolution. I wonder if you think that the party is going to make that evolution before it positively has to, before Donald Trump burns out completely. I already hear you saying no. Go ahead, Michael. I know it. See, this is me trying to ask a question that I think I don't already know the answer to, but go ahead. Go ahead.
No, brother, come on, man. You and I have been around the horn too long, right? We know what's up. We know what's going on. No, the reality of it is Donald Trump took that flag and he stuffed it in his pants. And so there we are. I mean, this idea that we're going to try to make the party relevant in the 21st century to recognize not just the demographic, but the political diversity that's emerging across the country. More people declaring themselves independent of party. Both parties, specifically Republicans in this environment, are going to have to figure out how to adapt to that. How do you address those voters? What are their requirements for support? What do they require to move forward with you? So the party's decided that it wants to, double down on Trump, triple down on Trump. You've got, frickin' frack in Florida running around screaming, who's your president? It's Donald Trump. No, he ain't, but y'all stupid. So how do you play on that? How do you then come back with a counterpoint that says, no, Donald Trump is not the president. Joe Biden is. And if you want to be competitive against Joe Biden in 4 years or Democrats in 2022, you ain't going to do it with this guy because the polling is showing you the country isn't buying what you guys are trying to sell.
Before I have to let you go, Michael, I wonder if it's better, at least for now, to have the voting base of the Republican Party, even with these different factions, remain as part of a cohesive party rather than possibly get pulled away to Lord knows what all may emerge from the darker corners of the internet with QAnon and conspiracy theories, whatever that might turn into, if it coalesced into some kind of political energy. You know, nature hates a vacuum, and I hate to imagine what that might turn into if the Republican Party fell apart with nothing conventional to take its place.
Well, there will be something conventional or somewhat conventional take its place. There are conversations that will emerge this week and in succeeding weeks that will clearly define a new way forward, a common sense, center-right, conservative approach to governing. And then we'll see how the Republicans respond, but certainly more importantly, how America responds. You're right. Politics abhors a vacuum, and there are folks who are sensitive to that, and their efforts right now that are, geared towards filling that vacuum, not allowing or leaving this space solely to the craziness from the Trump wing of what was used to be the Republican Party. And now something different is going to be right up against it to compete, and we'll see how that plays out, too.
Last 10 seconds, conversations on something that will emerge this week. Are we talking about something cohesive in time for the midterms, or something that will take longer to build than that?
No, something cohesive in time for the midterms.
Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican National Committee, and always good with leaving you wanting more. Michael, thanks very much.
All right, my friend.